Hello friends, happy new year. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to January's round of a game of tomes. If you're somehow not familiar by now, this is my TBR game that I play what was supposed to be every month. I roll a dice, I move around the board, and I use prompts to pick which books I read each month. I have finally created a brand new introduction video, so if you have never seen this before, if you would like to know how the game works, there is a link down below to the video, and you can kind of see, a tour of the board, what all the spaces are, what everything is, how it all works. There is also a Google Drive that has a document with all of the rules, as well as a digitized version of the board and the PDF version of all of the cards in case you ever want to play along at home. There's some very quick housekeeping things that I will just get out of the way here. If you're not interested, the game is, as always, timestamped down below, so you can just go skip to the rolls. But just a couple things I want to get out of the way. So I mentioned in my Ringing in the New Year tag video that one of my goals is to read 3 books a month, which means I will only be doing 3 rolls a month going forward, just because I want to make sure I prioritize longer books, more difficult books, and that I don't get too caught up in how many books I'm reading, but rather how well I am absorbing everything I read and the type of books I'm reading to make sure it is varied and that I am focusing on more difficult books. So like I said, that means there will be 3 rolls every month going forward. I know we started at 5 and now we're down to 4 and now we're down to 3, but I think it's really just more reflective of my reading right now that I'm okay with reading less in terms of quantity, but just different quality. In that vein, I have also removed, just for the sake of transparency, 3 cards from the character deck. I had Renly, Bran, and Stannis, if I'm not mistaken, and they all corresponded with an adult, young adult, and a middle grade book. That was just the basic prompts. The thing is, I don't really read young adult or middle grade anymore, so I don't think it's fair to keep those in, simply because I don't even have many of young adult or middle grade on my TBR point blank. So I think in order to prioritize books that I actually will be picking up and look forward to picking up, I think it's just fair to remove the age categories out of the game. When it comes to completing the TBR, so again, in that Ringing in the New Year tag video, I mentioned that I will be on a book buying ban in 2025, so I will be quite strict with what I can buy and bring into the collection. So this game will be more crucial than ever, because once I get to the very end, I can treat myself to a little book haul, or if I land on this space down here. So the goal is to try to actually succeed on my TBR and make my way through everything, because I do want to buy some books. But there is a caveat. Because I am focusing on more difficult books and longer books, I will count a book as kind of completed in the TBR if I do make a substantial chunk or dent in it, rather. That means like really big, chunky classics or a philosophy book. I will have had to pick it up and give it a genuine attempt. So I'm saying anywhere past, I think 30 to 40%, depending on the book, will count as like a genuine dent in a book, and that will count towards completing my TBR. This is again to accommodate for the fact that I'm trying to read books that are a little bit more challenging, a little bit more complex or dense, and I don't think it's fair to punish myself entirely if I don't finish a book like that in a month, because there's books last year that took me several months to complete. But the point is to start them at least and to pick these things up, as intimidating as they might be. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into our first roll. Welcome back to the board. As this is a new year, we're gonna go ahead and start at the start, because I am really trying to stick to a no buy for books. So we really will be only buying books if we land here or we get to the end, to the Iron Throne. All right, so I've gone ahead and turned the light on, if you could see that, just so we can actually see what's going on, because the lighting's being weird, but it is winter in Canada, so what do you expect? Let's just go get started with roll number 1. A 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've got a character card. Who do we got? We got Viserys. He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon. And the prompt is to read a book with a foiled or shiny cover. So for our first roll, we got our dear friend Viserys, and the prompt is to pick a book that has a foiled cover or a shiny cover. Kind of a vague prompt, not sure what I was thinking there. That's okay. I have something that is funny because it doesn't really look like a book, it looks like a coffee table book, but I've seen paperback versions of it, so I'm counting this as a book, and that is Stephen Fry's Mythos. So I have this spectacular edition that's got this beautiful foiling, so it fulfills our prompt, but it's also got this beautiful naked hardcover that's got this fantastic illustration on it that just looks so beautiful. And inside the book, there's actually full color images as well. And I think that's just such a nice touch, as you can see right here. So I do have all 3 of Stephen Fry's retellings. He has this one, which is just Greek myths reimagined in his, you know, in his tone with his humor. He also has Heroes, which is stories about the Greek demigods and heroes. And then there's also Troy, which is obviously about the Battle of Troy. I think this is one of those books that's going to be really good to just dip in and out of. Obviously, I don't foresee finishing this within a month, just because it's kind of a slower pace thing. It's multiple stories, right? So it's definitely going to be not like a traditional reading experience, but I am looking forward to actually finally reading these, because I've had these on my coffee table for years now, but I've heard actually really good things about the text inside. And Stephen Fry is a beloved person. He is a very good storyteller. He just has this fantastic tone and cadence. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing some myths that I love and some myths I maybe don't know, but imagined in his voice. Let's go ahead for rule number 2. That's a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's House Tully. I did a little culling of some of the cards and pulled out some prompts that are no longer relevant, since I have made this game several years ago, but I haven't culled these, so hopefully there's nothing too out of the ordinary in here for me. If we have a prompt that I've done before, I'll just pull a different one, but let's see. I had color-coded these at some point too, but I don't remember what they are. What is this? Ooh! I pick someone's video of their favorite series, and I pick a book from one of those series. That's actually could have gone a lot worse. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think all the pink ones had to do with other people's YouTube videos. Okay, so this one's a bit interesting. So we have to find someone's video of talking about their favorite series and pick a series out of that and read it. So hopefully I will have someone who has similar taste to mine, because my fantasy tastes have been a bit weird in the last year. So let's see what we can find. So let's go ahead and get into our YouTube, and we're just gonna look up favorite series of all time and see what we can find and see who we can find. Okay, I guess I have to be more specific and do book series. I forget not everyone reads. I don't know if I should specify fantasy, because I wanted to include sci-fi and fantasy. So maybe I should do SFF series. You know, I like this one here. Top 10 fantasy series of all time according to my subscribers. So this is like a crowdsource thing, I guess. And we'll be able, or according to booktubers. Ooh. Okay, well that one's an hour long, so we're not gonna do that one. But we'll do Captured in Words, top 10 fantasy series according to his subscribers. Let's see what we can find in here. I'm assuming there's gotta be something. I already see here some honorable mentions, Robin Hobb, which is astounding that she's not even in the top 10 as like crowdsourced. Quite rude, frankly. Okay, so he's saying that there's a specific series. So if it's a large series like the Cosmere or the Realm of the Elderlings, it would be specific series, trilogies, whatever, inside of that series. So that's interesting. Okay, so he scored them, so it's supposed to be fair, whatever. Okay. I don't think I need to know that. I was just curious what I would expect. Okay. So, do we count the honorable mentions? No, we're not counting the honorable mentions. Okay, we're gonna skip right past that so I don't get... Okay, whoa, damn. Lies of Locke Lamora ranked 12. I have a feeling this list is not gonna be for me, but I've already committed to the bit. Okay, I just got 2 ads in a row. Anyways, at the number 10 spot was the Dresden Files, which I refuse to read because I just know it's not gonna be for me. It's very man fantasy from what I've heard, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. I'm not reading that. Okay, Farseer got into the top 10. Thank God. I was really worried because it says here are some honorable mentions, Robin Hobb. I was like, if there's no Robin Hobb in a top 10 fantasy series video or list, I'm deeply upset. But it's at number 9, which is criminally low, but it's still there. Unfortunately, I'm not planning on rereading it yet, so we're not doing that. Number 8 is First Law Trilogy. Also not planning on rereading that soon. I was thinking maybe towards the end of the year because I need to reread the trilogy in order to get into the heroes because I didn't remember much. Fortunately, I don't think I'm doing that right now. Number 7 is Harry Potter. I'm not not rereading Harry Potter. Number 6 spot is The Wheel of Time. I'll put that in the back pocket. I didn't really want to reread whatever the first one is, The Eye of the World, and then continue with that series yet, but I have a feeling there's some other stuff in here that I'm not gonna want to read, so that's a maybe. A Song of Ice and Fire is number 5. I'm also not planning on rereading that anytime soon. Apparently I've done well at reading some of the most beloved series, so that's good. Oh, Patrick Rothfuss at number 4. From what I've heard, I'm surprised that this got higher than A Song of Ice and Fire in like a combined ranking like this. I truly don't think I want to read The Name of the Wind, if only because Rothfuss is dragging his feet in publishing the 3rd book, and I've also just heard not super great things about the series. I think that one's gonna be a no. Number 3 is The Lord of the Rings, which is a series I was planning on reading this year, so that's another possibility. Number 2 ranked is Mistborn Era 1, which is a criminal considering all the series that came before it, but that's a series I'm not planning to reread anytime soon, so we'll move right past that. I'm gonna guess number 1 is The Stormlight Archive, which is criminal considering my thoughts on that series, but it's whatever. Okay, so of the top 10, that means we have either The Wheel of Time, which is 15 books, or Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna go through the honorable mentions, if only because this is not, I should have expected this. So in the honorable mentions, we've had Empire of Silence, which is the Sun Eater series, is the series. And here we also have Grace of Kings, which is the Dandelion Dynasty, which I have been itching to read. So based on that, we have not very many options ahead of us. I have acquired the said options that we have. Unfortunately, only 2 of them were within the top 10, which is unfortunate. Here's my thing right now. This seems to be quite technically complex in terms of the language. This is a time investment and a half, and this is a very large book. So my options are not great. The only other option is to reread The Lies of Locke Lamora, which I have been wanting to do, but I think it would be good to read down my TBR, which means we would also exclude The Wheel of Time from this group, which means we're left with these 2. Now, my baby pea brain says I should maybe not do this because it's going to be hard, but it also says this is a big book. Do I just reread The Lies of Locke Lamora? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna wait to see what the rest of this TBR looks like, and then we will make a decision. So we're gonna put this prompt on the back burner, and we're gonna see what the rest of this TBR looks like, and then we will figure our shit out, basically. All right, let's go ahead for roll number 3. That's another 6. 5, 6, and we get a Raven card. Of course, we couldn't have had an entirely positive month. Let's see what we got. Add book to TBR, pick a location card. Okay, so basically I just go ahead, I'm gonna pick a location card now, and we're gonna add another roll. What a way to start the year. Let's go ahead and pick. We have Castle Black, read a book with a dark cover. Okay, well, luckily that one's nice and simple. Well, this is going great. So we've picked a Raven card, which forced us to add another roll, so we're starting the year strong. We got Castle Black. So for this prompt, I've decided to go with Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. This is a nonfiction about what she calls hidden caste system that is at play in America, that's always been at play within America, and that has in fact influenced a lot of other countries and movements, including the Nazi Party in Hitler's Germany. I've heard so many fantastic things about this book. I've heard just how well written it is. I know that her other book, The Warmth of Other Suns, is very highly regarded as well. I've been looking forward to reading this for a while, especially when there was buzz around it, but I just didn't get around to it. So I think now is going to be finally the time, because a lot of the time when I read very hyped nonfiction, I end up liking it after all. It's one of those things that like the hype gets to me like it does with fantasy series, but I tend to pick up the fantasy series more immediately to be involved in the conversation, and then I don't like them. But when I pick up nonfiction well after the hype has died down, I realize just how good it is. So I'm finally gonna get to see what the hype for this one is about, and I would consider this a dark cover. If you're able to have white font, your background's dark. So this is a dark cover, so it counts for our Castle Black prompt. And unfortunately, we're not ending this here. Let's go to our fourth roll. Okay, well, let's go for roll number 4, which we didn't expect, but it is what it is. 1. That's House Stark, and the prompt there is just to reread a book. Luckily, our roll number 4 was quite nice. We get to do a reread, which kind of helps me figure out what I'm doing with roll number 2, which is very helpful. I'm glad I did that. So for our reread, I started rereading the Witcher series in December, so I'm going to be continuing with Sword of Destiny, the second book in the reading order, but this is really the second kind of standalone that you read before the main arc. It's just a few short stories kind of introducing the Witcher and his friends and some characters that you will see and some of the plot beats and politics. Also very surprised that this was nowhere near the list in that video, because this is a beloved series. I know the video game has kind of surpassed the books, but I thought the books are still very beloved. I'm a little disappointed about that as well. This is a fantasy series where you are ostensibly following Geralt, who is a monster hunter, as he kind of moves through this war-stricken world. But it's not really about him. It's more so about Ciri, his adoptive daughter, who is an extremely powerful descendant of some mage fairy, and she just, like, everyone wants to get their hands on her. And this series is truly just about subverting fantasy tropes and expectations, and it holds such a special place in my heart. And last fall, I watched an entire 5-part series on YouTube that someone made. Each 5 parts were feature-length films, at least an hour to 2 hours long, about how Netflix's Witcher adaptation completely missed the mark, and it just gave me the mood to reread this series because it's so masterful. But on a first reread, because Sapkowski's language is a little bit complex, I didn't fully grasp it all. So I am very excited to keep going with my reread of this and maybe make some content centered around it, because I love this series so deeply, and hearing what Netflix did with it just like broke my heart, because I want more people to know the greatness that is these characters, that is this world and this take on fantasy. So I'm looking forward to continuing my reread. With that being said, since there is a reread on the list, I'm thinking it would make sense to not reread Wheel of Time, even though it is to continue a series. I just don't know if I'm ready for the commitment that is Wheel of Time this year, or at least right now. There's a few other series that I really would like to start or continue before I get to this. If we are, though, on the topic of seminal fantasy series, I'm thinking my pick is gonna have to be Lord of the Rings. I have felt a little bit embarrassed that I have not read this yet for a while, and it's just one of those that I think as a fantasy fan I should at least try to understand why it was so influential. I actually don't even know the plot of this, besides the fact that they're obviously searching for a ring that is very powerful. I've heard it's about friendship and singing and traveling, and I don't know if the cozy vibes are gonna work for me, but I really want to understand why this is a classic beyond just a genre classic, but really a classic that everyone loves and respects so much. Which means we have our first stack of 2025. Here is my TBR for January. I think it's pretty good. I think there's definitely 2 of these books that I will not finish in the month, but I do plan to get around to all of them. I think it's going to be very feasible, and I think it's an interesting little array, so I'm looking forward to it for sure. I'm especially curious to hear if you've read Stephen Fry's reimagining of Greek myths and tales, any one of them, either Heroes or this one or Troy, and if you've also read Isabel Wilkerson and what you've thought of her, because I have heard only overwhelmingly positive things, and I'm very curious if that is just because it is that good, or if you have maybe another opinion. My social media is linked down below. You guys can always come talk to me there. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!